Thank you so much, Kayla. And thank you so much to everyone here. Thank you not just for being here tonight, but thank you for all you do. Thank you for being the real hope and the real power that will change America and change the world. And those of you who are here, by the way, we are not alone, as you know that. Right now, on just one of these social media streaming sites, on Do Dissidents alone, there are 3,000 people who are with us right now. People so badly need to hear everything that was said here tonight. To know that the theater of the absurd going on right now in mainstream media covering the Democratic nominating convention, that is the theater of the absurd. We the people are locked out of that convention. We the people are having a real convention right here and right now and out in the streets. We hear nothing but genocide denial going on in that convention. That convention that's brought to us by AIPAC, by the war profiteers, by the healthcare insurance industry and big pharma and big real estate. That is who is funding politics in America and shaping the message at the DNC, shaping the agenda in Congress, shaping the agenda of the White House. And we say, enough of that. The American people are done being thrown under the bus. There is a moment of confusion going on right now, referred to as the Kamala mania. Many of us have seen this before. Anybody remember Obama mania? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We are not being fooled here. And America will not long be fooled. They can only be fooled right now because Kamala Harris has not had a single real interview with the press. She has not had a single debate, and in fact, she has not received a single vote. Kamala was anointed and appointed by the political elites and the economic elites in the Democratic Party. So this too will pass. The only question is when. It will be as soon as she's actually called to account, as soon as she actually begins to open her mouth, as she did, the first time that she was challenged at a rally, where she was challenged by some of the Palestinian protesters. And what did she say? Basically what she says, if you want Donald Trump elected, keep talking, otherwise I'm speaking. Boo. Well, she's going to be hearing a lot from we the people because we are speaking. All of us are speaking. So just to remember, Obama came into his election, he came into power claiming that he would end the war in Iraq. What did he do? He went from 2 wars to 7 wars. He ran saying he would close Guantanamo Bay. That exists till this day. He did not even begin to close it. He ran saying he would provide at least a public option and bulk purchasing of pharmaceuticals. They didn't do any such thing. They just continued to privatize healthcare and pour public subsidies into private profits through the Affordable Care Act. So we've been here before, and it's just shameful that people are being fooled, but it's not clear how much people are being fooled or how much they're just being intimidated and they're not showing up. We'll see. Yes, her polls are spiking, but her polls do not cover everybody. And in 2020, in the presidential election, 1 out of every 3 American voters voted with their feet by not participating in that election and not giving their votes to either Trump or Biden. Those are the people who are most being thrown under the bus. Those who don't vote are largely youth, people of color, people in low-income communities who are not voting, who are absolutely the first to be thrown under the bus, those who are getting hit worst and first. But that tide of abuse is really reaching all of us now, as more and more Americans are struggling harder and harder. We know now that over 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, barely scraping by. We know that half of all Americans right now are paying 30 to 50% of their monthly income just to keep a roof over their heads, and are just 1 or 2 paychecks away from being evicted. Evictions are skyrocketing. Rates of homelessness are at an absolutely unprecedented rate, at the same time that the Supreme Court is making it illegal to be homeless, and you are at risk for being arrested simply for sleeping in the public, for lack of an actual place to put your head down and rest. So, you know, this is not happening around the margins. This is happening to all of us. And as our speakers addressed before, healthcare is a crisis for everyone right now. We're seeing 8 million Americans who were driven into poverty last year just from the cost of healthcare alone. 18 million Americans who were not able to afford their pharmaceuticals. Yet this was a promise made back in the time of Obama that they would adopt bulk purchasing and bring down the cost of pharmaceuticals. They still haven't done it, even though they are patting themselves on the back now for claiming what a great job they're doing of bringing down those costs for 10 pharmaceuticals. 10 out of absolutely thousands. You know, it's like AOC, who we fondly call AOC Pelosi. And I have to credit my newfound running mate, Butch Ware, for coming up with that one. What AOC said, was it last night? You know, just giving cover to Kamala. This pretense that the Democratic Party is working hard, the Biden-Harris administration, that they are working hard to achieve a ceasefire. In fact, while we were having our convention with abandoned Biden-Harris, someone in the press interrupted to say that, oh, good news, a ceasefire agreement had just been adopted. And we said, what? Oh, okay, let's see what pans out, you know. And we've seen what pans out. You know, that was just another rumor, another misleading statement that AOC herself was parroting, pretending that there is some ceasefire agreement that is forever just an inch or two in front of our noses. But in fact, that ceasefire agreement is not coming. And in fact, the murder and the torture and the destruction of people and the civilization is increasing. It's not getting better, even as the Democrats are telling us that the ceasefire is around the corner. In fact, the number of deaths has gone up massively since the time when they first started promising. You know, and that number is now up to some 200,000 people. But who's counting? Because people are being pulverized right now. There are no bodies. Even when there's no rubble on top of them, you still cannot count the bodies. People who are losing relatives are being handed little plastic bags of basically pulverized bodies that are strewn on the floor. You know, this is like a commentary of who our government is, of how our tax dollars are being spent. To me, one of the really grimmest symbols, one of the truest symbols of what this policy is the fact that over 1,000 children, it was 1,000 months ago, over 1,000 children have had leg amputations with no anesthesia. I mean, that's like going back to the incredible era of barbarism. During the Civil War, before there was anesthesia, that was the era of biting the bullet. Biting the bullet meant you were given a bullet to bite on while you were having amputations in the Civil War. And what's going on right now is like that level of barbarity being inflicted on children. So we say to anyone who's confused about who do they vote for and what do you vote for, to know that every vote for Kamala is an endorsement. It is an affirmation. It supports and it enables genocide. If you want to enable genocide, well, yeah, you've got your candidate in Kamala Harris. But if you want to stop genocide, voting for our campaign is how we do that. And every vote, every single vote that's cast for our campaign is a shot across the bow of the empire that we are organized and we are coming for them. They who are war criminals who actually belong in The Hague. We are getting organized. The American people already agree with us. That is why there is such a powerful disinformation and fear campaign that's going on right now 24/7 to silence us and to disappear us. Because the empire is quaking in its boots, because the American people are done being thrown under the bus, and we are done tolerating a genocide, which is really the tip of the spear of empire. And this empire is not only impoverishing us, it is also endangering us. That empire is not limited to the outrages being committed in Gaza. That empire has conducted regime change about 80 times since the Second World War, basically strewing death and destruction across the world in its policies of endless war. Has this created a more secure or peaceful world? Hardly. What it's brought us is essentially failed states, mass refugee migrations, and continuing terrorist threats, one right after the other. You can go all the way back to the war in Vietnam. What did we accomplish in the war in Vietnam? You know, absolutely nothing. Vietnam was where I woke up as a teenager in high school. I woke up to what kind of a world we are living in and what our political system is. Whether it was Democrats or whether it was Republicans, it was all about killing people in Vietnam and taking our young people to die in Vietnam. And it was so clear to me that it was absolutely absurd, this political system. I wanted nothing to do with it until I discovered Ralph Nader in the year 2000 and discovered this. This is what democracy looks like. This is what people-powered and worker-powered democracy actually looks like. But just a few more words about that empire, because that empire, you know, it has a policy. It's called full spectrum dominance. That means that we, the USA, will dominate all countries, all potential areas of competition, all around the world, in all spheres of interaction, whether it is on the battlefield, whether it is under the sea, on the sea, in the oceans, in the skies, in cyberspace, in outer space. We, the US, will dominate all spheres. And that is what we have proceeded to do since the collapse of the Soviet Union, when we became the unopposed power. And we still think we are the unopposed power. We are not the unopposed power, and we need to get with the program soon and stop being the bully in the china shop. That is costing us, that is costing us half of our congressional budget, which works out to, I did check this number because it's not in common circulation, it's $12,000 on average per household that paid for the endless war machine last year. $12,000. Did you have something better you might have done with $12,000? That is the average contribution of each household to the endless war machine last year. That includes the VA, it includes nuclear power and weapons in the energy program. And so on. So it includes some of the things that aren't usually calculated in there. But remember, it is half of our congressional dollars that are going into this endless war machine. And it not only impoverishes us and prevents us from spending what we need on healthcare and housing and education and making public higher education free and building at least 15 million units of public housing, good quality social housing. That is what we need. That is what we need to do. And just a couple other words about what we need to do, because we can do this. The American public is strongly in support, actually, of a radical, progressive left agenda, starting with health care for everyone as a human right, whether it's Medicare for all as a stepping stone to a nationalized healthcare system. That's where we can begin. It doesn't cost us any money. This is the big secret. It actually saves us money, $500 billion per year. It is such a condemnation of our current batch of criminal misleaders that they are neglecting this. This is motherhood and apple pie. We should have healthcare as a human right for everyone right now. We need housing as a human right for everyone right now. And that starts with a national program of rent control to stabilize our rents and prevent this massive, endless escalation of our rent. To prevent gentrification, we need a tenant bill of rights that prevents you from being evicted so that your landlord can remodel, raise the price, and gentrify your neighborhood and lock you out. And why don't we have public housing? This is such an important, critical investment in our nation. We don't have public housing thanks to Bill Clinton. Under Bill Clinton, a piece of legislation was passed called the Fair Cloth Bill. That basically prohibited any public investment in public housing. And there went public housing so that it could be replaced by private and luxury housing, which now basically usurps public subsidies to fund a little tiny bit of affordable housing while the developers make out like bandits with largely and mostly unaffordable and luxury housing. So we need to reclaim our right to public housing. We can have that. We're also calling, by the way, for a $25 an hour minimum wage now, so that a minimum wage is a living wage. And by the way, we are calling for strong rights of unions. Everyone deserves a good union job and a strong union to protect us, provide dignity at the workplace. we need to declare a climate emergency because we are in a climate emergency. And they won't tell you this, but the reason they don't declare a climate emergency is because if they did that, they would then have over $500 billion per year to start dealing with that climate emergency. That's why our administration, on day one, will declare that climate emergency, will unleash that $600 billion per year to actually start creating the high quality, good paying union jobs that provide the emergency transition we need. And as part of that also, we bring into public ownership, public management, and public planning all the corporations necessary, and we create new public entities which are publicly owned and publicly managed. In order to do that, that is why, as Greens, we are an eco-socialist party, because the climate collapse will not be fixed by capitalism. It is part and parcel. While our economy, our economic system is endlessly exploiting people, workers, wages, and our resources, our scarce resources, and investing in endless growth, that is a climate disaster. There is no way to fix the climate crisis without ending capitalism and its basic tenets. I want to mention quickly a couple other things that will happen on day one. And by the way, as part of the Green New Deal, we not only create green energy, we also create green, sustainable public transportation. That is how we solve this crisis. And that public transportation is part of public housing, by the way. The housing that we will build as part of social housing comes with public transportation. It also comes with the preservation of green space and recreational space that are added also as human rights to part of our development of livable and sustainable communities, as what social housing is all about. A couple other things, because I know we're short on time. We could go on all night here. But I want to add, cutting the military budget is a critical part of this agenda. And that is 50 to 75%. And remember that the president is the commander-in-chief and proposes that military budget. So we don't have to wait for Congress to come into agreement. We can get to work right away cutting the military budget. On day one, we will fix the immigration crisis. And the most critical thing to fix the immigration crisis is to stop causing it in the first place. We will end the endless wars and regime change operations which destabilize whole nations and force people to flee for their lives. We will also end the war on drugs, by the way, and declare amnesty for those who've been unjustly locked up in our jails. We will address substance use as a public health issue, not as a criminal issue. And by doing that, and by ending the war on drugs overseas, which is largely at our instigation, by ending that war on drugs, we also decompress the migration crisis, because it is that black market that gives so much money and power to the violent cartels to terrorize people broadly and, again, drive that migration crisis. So we can begin to decompress the migration crisis on day one by rolling back the prohibitions on substances and on drugs and reclassifying drugs. And just a couple other things to mention quickly. On day one, We will also instruct our Department of Justice to take AIPAC to court so that it is no longer has the ability, it becomes a so-called a foreign agent, and it is no longer able to buy our Congress and our president, by the way. On that same day, we will also initiate an antitrust lawsuit against corporate media so that we can get back to the real media exemplified by RBN here tonight, the Revolutionary Blackout Network. This is what the real press looks like. We call those other guys, we call them the O-press. This is the real press. And a antitrust lawsuit will also break up the corporate media conglomerates whose job is basically to advance their own careers. That is what they do. They are lapdogs to power. We need a media which are watchdogs to power. The First Amendment is first for a critical reason. We cannot have a democracy without freedom of speech, freedom to protest, freedom to redress grievances, freedom of political association. We need that First Amendment. We need it badly now. That is why they are at war with the First Amendment right now. So remember, as Frederick Douglass said, and I'll conclude with that, as Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. We are that demand. Don't let them pretend otherwise. We are absolutely essential to ending genocide and not stopping there. We will also end empire. We will end oligarchy and we will end fascism. The Democratic Party is not the solution to fascism. They are actually the cause of this right-wing extremism in this country through their agenda, their neoliberal agenda of austerity, of privatization, of endless war, and huge tax giveaway to the wealthy. That is what drives the misery of working people, 30 million people who've lost their jobs who over the last several decades. It is that economic misery that is basically the driver of right-wing extremism. The way we solve the right-wing extremism is not through the Democratic Party. It's doing like what France did just a month or so ago, bringing the left together and actual everyday working people together so that we can have critical mass. We can be an unstoppable force. We will be that unstoppable force together. That is how we beat back fascism, not by voting for the lesser evil or disappearing ourselves through the Democratic Party. So I will just end by quoting Alice Walker, the famous poet, novelist, and Palestinian human rights advocate. Alice Walker, and I'm paraphrasing her, basically, she said, "The biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with." Our job is to get out there and build that power and manifest that power. Remember, a vast majority of Americans already oppose this genocide. The majority of Americans are tired of being thrown under the bus, are tired of living paycheck to paycheck, are tired of struggling to keep a roof over their heads and to try to get health care, which so many are denied right now. We do have the numbers, we have the values, we have the vision, we have the solution. I say thank you all so much who are in this room and who are listening, because it is we who are not being talked out of our power. It is we who are not drinking that toxic Kool-Aid that the corporate media machine is spinning overtime right now to throw at us. But that bubble will be bursting very soon in so many ways. It's just a matter of having the courage of our convictions and moving ahead and being organized together. It's not so complicated. It is politics 101. It is door knocking. It is tabling. It is flyering. It is phone banking. And it is contributing when you can, what you can, for us to fight the power. The power is quaking in their boots. That is why they announced back in March that they were hiring an army of corporate lawyers to try to throw us off the ballot because they're terrified of having to confront us in the court of public opinion. This is why they are actually now advertising. They have the utter shamelessness and the gall to be publicly advertising right now for people to take jobs infiltrating and disrupting and spying on our campaign. They are actually doing that. That's the DNC that is doing that job posting. And they are also holding on to our money. We earned basically $300,000 in public matching funds, and they have refused to give it to us starting about a month ago until the petition drives are over. Now, why would they be doing that? Because they are terrified that we are coming. And I will say corporate media and some of the, shall we say, somewhat pseudo-progressive media has refused to cover us all along. Democracy Now!, somehow they have managed not to cover the one anti-genocide, anti-war, pro-worker climate emergency campaign that actually has a pathway to the White House. We say shame on you, Democracy Now!, shame. And once we are done with our ballot access drives, and we're within about 2 weeks of completing them, and we are going to be on the ballot for probably it'll be about 90, maybe 95% of voters here. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to all of you so much for making that happen. And the bottom line is the empire is quaking in its boots. It knows its days are numbered. The days of genocide are numbered. We are strong. We are not turning around. We are going forward. Together, we are absolutely unstoppable. And I'm so thrilled to be here tonight with Workers' Strike Back, with all of you, for us to be looking forward to the future, including that organizing conference in February, which we should all be very much a part of, and everything between now and then. Let's stand up. Let's show them what real democracy is made of, what peace and justice and an end to genocide looks like. Thank you all so very much.